Good morning. It's Monday, February 2nd. Groundhog Day. Again? I say again. Groundhog Day. Again? And now the news. Starting with the news that Liam Conejo Ramos, the 5-year-old Minneapolis boy that the government, kidnapped before sending him and his father to an ICE facility in Texas, a state that is famously not a city in Minnesota, has been sent back to Minneapolis. His father has also been sent back to Minneapolis. This thanks to a stunningly blatant ruling from a judge who said the case, quote, has its genesis in the ill-conceived and incompetently implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently even if it requires traumatizing children, end quote. Talk about someone eating their Wheaties in the morning. Additionally, the judge wrote, quote, observing human behavior confirms that for some of us, the perfidious lust for unbridled power and the imposition of cruelty in its quest knows no bounds and are bereft of human decency, and the rule of law be damned, end quote. Boy, oh boy. Let me tell you something. Some judges deserve to be judges. I want to note something I said in an early version of the story. I reported it this way, a lot of people reported it this way, but his dad is trying to clear something up, and I want to help him do it for the tens of listeners here. Early reports said that when ICE came up on Liam's dad, he ran from officials. And to be clear, no judgment. These are masked men murdering people on the streets. So no judgment. However, to be clear, what was actually happening is that he was walking in front of his son, trying to find someone who would come out and help them. Liam's dad said, quote, I love my son too much. I would never abandon him, end quote. By the way, as a reminder, it worked. There were people there ready to help them. Also, they shouldn't have needed the help to begin with. They were going through the legal asylum process and had not missed a single appointment since they started the process. We are obviously thrilled that Liam is home. This was the right thing to do, a rare right thing. This is good news. And also, we need to stay aware of the fact that the nonprofit news organization, the Marshall Project, found that at least 3,800 minors, including 20 infants, were detained last year by ICE. Additionally, ProPublica found that last year ICE sent approximately 600 children that they arrested inside of the country to federal shelters that were built to house minors that were detained at the border. And that number, 600, is more than during Biden's entire 4 years in office. Liam got to go home because a picture went viral, and we would not stop yapping. I know right now it feels like we don't have any power, and listen, don't let me talk you out of a bad mood. But Liam is home today. He is back with his mom and his brother because of the power that we have. Because we did not stop talking about it. We have more power than we realize, and we cannot forget it. Hey, we're in a partial government shutdown. Some side note before I continue, I'm starting to think, hear me out, the way we do government is not a good idea. We're always about to be or are in some sort of government shutdown. We got to figure out a new idea, hard reset on this thing. Anyway, so here's what's happening. Look how cute and clever I am. Government, stupid. Congress has already passed half of the spending bills for the year, but last week they needed to pass 6 of the remaining bills, and Republicans wanted to put them all in one bill because they were like, this will be sneaky, and Democrats were like, what if we didn't? And they wanted to separate DHS funding and delay that for a vote later because they thought maybe it would not be a good idea to give ICE more money while they were murdering people on the streets. In order to prevent a shutdown, separating DHS funding actually got the green light. So the first 5 bills have passed through the Senate. However, they have not been voted on in the House, hence this partial shutdown. But fear not. Speaker Mike Johnson, little Mikey J, is on the case. He says that it'll be a few days before the funding comes to a vote. We certainly don't want to rush things when it comes to funding our government. So there we go. No, it sounds like maybe Tuesday things will open right up. What are we doing? You could do this on Monday. Why not just bring it to a vote on Monday? Anyway, so it'll be a few days, but it sounds like the government will be open eventually this week. And what of your co-equal branches of government, little Mikey J? He says, quote, as far as the government, this little partial shutdown, quote, the president is leading this, end quote. The president is not a part of the legislative branch. He's a part of the executive branch, meant to be the weakest branch of this tree. Imagine working your whole career to become Speaker of the House. Big job. And you're Mike Johnson when you do it. Actually, imagine becoming Mike Johnson. Could never be me. So in summary, as soon as little Mikey can get around to it, they're going to have a vote on these 5 spending bills. Those will pass through the House because they already passed through the Senate, so presumably they will pass through the House, and then the government will open in full. It's just a partial shutdown. It will open in full, and then in 2 weeks they will vote on the DHS spending bill, and that will be over whether they should give more money to ICE or not. On Friday, the Department of Justice released 3.5 million more documents from the Epstein files. That is still not all of them, but it is 3.5 million, and they are harrowing. Absolutely awful. So here's the thing, 3.5 million, that is going to take people a while to go through all of that. What's come out so far is really, really bad. We've got Bill Clinton on Epstein's plane at least 16 times in the early 2000s. So, yeah, you should probably come in and sit down for the House, my guy. We've got Elon Musk emailing Epstein asking for an invite to the island. Musk previously said that he had been invited but never went, but multiple emails asking to go to the island prove otherwise, and it wasn't like he was just looking for a spot to read by the sound of the ocean. In November 2012, Musk responded to an email from Epstein, and in the email he asked, quote, what day/night will be the wildest party on your island, end quote. That is 4 years after Epstein was first arrested and his crimes were made public. So Musk knew exactly who Epstein was and what these parties were. And there he is, right there, asking for the wildest party. There are also tips in these files from people calling into the FBI. One of those tips is an encounter that the White House has obviously denied between Trump and a woman who called in the tip. She said that she witnessed this encounter 35 years ago when she was 13 or 14 years old. I'm trying to be careful with language here because, gotta protect our little cortisones. In this horrific encounter that she had when she was 13 or 14, this is what is said in the tip. This is what she was a witness to. Quote, the friend was allegedly hit in the face after she laughed about biting President Trump. The friend said she was also abused by Epstein, end quote. 13 or 14 years old. You can understand or imagine, of course, where she bit Trump. 13 or 14 years old. The tip continues, quote, complainant reported being threatened by Trump's then head of security that if she ever talked of what went on there or who she saw, she would end up as fertilizer for the back 9 holes, like the other word, end quote, because they did use a word there, but it is a word I definitely don't say. The Brits say it casually. So it sounds like perhaps somebody should do some CSI investigations on the Mar-a-Lago golf course. In response, the FBI said, quote, complainant was spoken to and deemed not credible, end quote. That is somebody calling in a tip between Donald Trump and a 13 or 14-year-old who had a sexual encounter, bit Trump, was then hit, and was threatened with death like others were murdered if she ever talked about what happened or who she saw there. Really bad. Absolutely heinous. Here's something also bad. Following the release of these files, Todd Blanche, the Assistant Attorney General, and Trump's former personal lawyer, I wonder how he got that job, said that those, quote, horrible photographs and terrible emails don't, quote, allow us necessarily to prosecute somebody, end quote. All this proof doesn't mean we can charge someone. They are, after all, men. Quote, there's a lot of correspondence. There's a lot of emails. There's a lot of photographs. There's a lot of horrible photographs that appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or people around him. But that doesn't allow us necessarily to prosecute somebody, end quote. Too much proof. It's too much. He understands that Epstein's survivors, quote, want to be made whole, end quote. But that, quote, doesn't mean we can just create evidence or that we can just kind of come up with a case that isn't there. End quote. Todifer, I have the best news for you. You don't have to create evidence. If you just look a couple of sentences up, you will actually see that a ton of evidence is ready to roll. Dude, it's 3.5 million files. There's going to be a lot to go through still. And we already have one where the President of the United States is having a sexual encounter with a 13 or 14-year-old. And then she was punched. And then she was threatened to be murdered by Trump's head of security. And in that threat, it was made very clear that she would not be the first person to have been murdered. But we couldn't possibly. Also noteworthy in these horrific files is that there are a ton of redactions in there, but the redactions protect the men who did the crimes. Unredacted are the survivors, mistakenly, whoopsie-daisicles, names and identifying information even for survivors who had never been linked to this case before. Just a classic whoopsies. Meanwhile, the men who have done these horrible crimes get to keep their privacy, and Trump, who is in the files and called this man a terrific guy and has an allegation of pedophilia in these files, has his personal lawyer that he gave a job to up there saying it is impossible for all this evidence to be used as evidence. I don't know what comes next. I'm recording this on Sunday. This came out on Friday. There's a lot of files to go through. Whatever comes of this, may none of these have the life you deserve. May peace never find you. And finally, I can't have you headed into a Monday on that final note. I'll be like, enjoy your week. Here's the worst story. So we are going to end on an up in Texas. Not only that, but hold on to your spurs because it's a good election news story out of Texas, if you can even believe it. On Saturday, the Lone Star State had a special election, and here are two good results out of the state. First, a Democrat flipped a state Senate seat in a red district that Trump won last year by 17 points. 17 points. And it is not even like this race was close. The Democrat won by 14 points. And Trump tried too. He called the Republican candidate a, quote, great candidate that has my complete and total endorsement, end quote. Of course, Trump being Trump on Sunday said, quote, I'm not involved in that. That's a local Texas race, end quote. I'm sorry, you said Texas? Am I pronouncing that right? Beep, bop, boop. I'm unable to emotionally process anything. I have so much money and still I buy my suits off the rack. Beep, not me. Stellar impression as always. Also in Texas, in the U.S. House, Christian Menefee won that runoff special election, and in her speech, she called out Trump, saying that the Democratic district, quote, topples corrupt presidencies, end quote. To be fair, in this election, a Democrat was always going to win. It was Democrat versus Democrat to fill a Democratic seat that was vacated when Sylvester Turner died in March. So it's been vacated since March, and there's been movement in the House since March. So this Democratic seat finally being filled is a shakeup. It means that if all the Republicans are present and all the Democrats are voting along party lines, Speaker Johnson can only lose one vote. And as we all know, that man is not good at his job. And that's politics aside. I'm saying, for real, just objectively, that dude is bad at his job. So that's where things stand. Not too shabby. Not a bad weekend in Texas. And that's it. That's the news. I'm proud of Texas. The stars at night are big, and according to Pew Research, 1% more Democratic than they are Republican. So if Texas voters are able to power through the horrific voter suppression, and if Democrats can find a brave and spend a little money out there, Texas could finally be what it was always meant to be, a swing state that swings left. I'm also proud of groundhogs. You built a whole career on whether someone can see your shadow. That's not a bad career. But more than that, because you are the sun. You're not a shadow. You're in nobody's shadow. You're the sun. I'm proud of you.